Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks joining from different parts of the globe. Hello everyone and welcome to Wire to Win webinar series. My name is Noor Basha, Marketing Manager at Winwire Technologies. I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. So before we start, let me highlight a few housekeeping items as you can see on the screen. During the webinar, please feel free to post questions and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end. Recording as well as the slides will be made available to you in next 24 to 48 hours. So today's topic for the session is building IoT solutions using Windows IoT Core. So this is our part 2 of 3 series. In last 2 weeks back, we conducted a webinar on Azure IoT. Okay, and this is our part 2. So let me introduce you to today's webinar, today's presenter. My colleague, Mr. Amit Dubey, who is the Director of Cloud and Mobility at Winwire Technologies. And he has over 15 years of experience in the IT industry and is a Microsoft Azure certified developer. Also, I just regret to inform you that my colleague Vineet Arora could not join this session due to some urgent meetings. So Amit would take over this complete session. Amit, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Noor. Welcome everyone. Good morning, good evening. Myself, Amit Dubey. I'm the Director for Cloud and Mobility at Winwire Technologies. Vineet Arora, our CTO, could not join today, so I'll be taking you over this session. So we're going to talk about building IoT applications using Windows 10 IoT Core. So as part of the agenda, I'll let you know what Windows 10 IoT Core is and how you will be building solutions using Windows 10 IoT Core. And then we'll see how to deploy them on different devices. And then I'll talk about a sample IoT solution that we have built. And then I'm going to show you some code that we have written for that. So that's on a very high level that we are going to cover in today's session. Let's see what is IoT first of all. So you must have heard about IoT by now, and you must have some idea of what it is. So basically, if you see, there is no standard definition of IoT. So as per Gartner, it says like a network of physical objects that contain embedded technology and communicate and interact with the internal states or their external environment. So in my mind, if you ask me, like IoT is all about connected devices. So IoT consists of like 4 components in all. So first is the device that you have. So it could be anything. It could be a computer, or it could be as simple as a tab that we're going to talk about. So that's a device for you. The second thing is connectivity. So now this device needs to connect to the cloud where you have a service or an application running, and it needs to communicate with that. So that's the second part, which is the communication. The third part is data. Now that it is connected, it's going to send you some information, like how it is operating, does it have an error, does it have a warning, or any information that it wants to pass on. So that is the data that it will provide you using that connectivity to your service or applications. The final component of IoT would be the analytics. Now that you have started collecting data from your devices, what are you going to do with that? So unless you analyze that and create meaningful reports out of it, so it's not going to be of much use. So those are the 4 basic components of IoT. One is your device, one is your connectivity, third is data, and fourth is analytics. Now, today we are going to talk about device, like how you can write programs on the device that can connect to a service and then pass information to it. So that is what we are going to cover in this session. So it's only going to concentrate on the device part. In the first part of the series, we had done a webinar on Azure IoT Suite that was more about what are the different components available on cloud that you can use to build IoT applications. So if you haven't attended that, you can always go and see the recording for the first part of this 3 webinar series that we are conducting on IoT. So that was the Azure IoT Suite, and now we are moving on to the Windows 10 IoT Core that can be installed on devices, and then you can write programs against them. So let's move forward and see how IoT was like 5 years back. Now, if you see, IoT in 2010 was like you had minimal devices actually that used to communicate with the cloud. or probably any service. So the device used to have like wireless connectivity with which used to use some protocols and then transfer some data. So that was the scenario 5 years back. It was very difficult to actually write any programs for the device. So you had to write embedded code in the device itself, and the connectivity was a major issue. And you did not have cloud, like Azure was not available. So you did not have mechanisms to handle like millions of devices or tons of data. Now when you see in IoT in 2015, there has been a drastic change. Now you can make your devices connected very easily. So that's what we're going to see today, like how if I have a device, I can connect that to the internet and transfer data about the device. And then there is cloud. There is Azure, which provides Azure IoT Suite that has a number of components, built-in solutions and everything that you can leverage to quickly build IoT applications. And there are powerful analytical tools that are available for you to build some reports. So in 2015, you see a number of devices have come up that actually do communication with your services. So it could be anything from like smart appliances or air conditioners or microwaves, your fridge, anything. You name it and you can connect it to the internet by using simple boards which have a chip and then a small circuit that you can build around it. So let's move on. Let's see how Windows 10 actually helps us in achieving this goal of creating IoT applications. So Windows 10 represents the culmination of the Windows platform convergence journey with a unified Windows core. So now with this, you can see that there is a single core, Windows core available that actually helps build like Windows 10 for different devices. Like the same core can be extended to work on a desktop, laptop, and same core can be extended to work on a, say, Raspberry Pi or a mobile device. So the core still remains the same, and then you have extensions of it. So how this convergence happened? Like if you see earlier, like Windows used to have different versions for different devices, for one for handheld, one for embedded. There was an embedded standard, and 8.1 was also having like two different branches for that. Though embedded and embedded standard became one, handheld was still a different operating system. So there was no common ground for each of these. With Windows 10, what happens is now everything has converged into like one single core, and rest everything comes out of it. So it can run on devices, it can run on desktops. So one core and multiple SKUs. That is how you can look at it. Windows 10. So how does this help us? How does a converged core help us build IoT applications? So you can see that you can use your skills that you use regularly in application development. If you're a C# developer or a .NET developer, writing code for so many years now, easily what you can do is you can create IoT applications using Windows Core by using the same technologies that you have been using for years. I mean, you can write C# code. You can use Visual Studio to create applications that run on a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino or a Mino board Max, and then use those to connect your devices to the internet. So on a high level, like if you see Windows 10 IoT is a new edition of Windows targeted for small embedded devices like a Raspberry Pi or a Arduino board, and it is designed to work with low-level bus interfaces. And you can write universal Windows platform applications. So these are called as UWP applications that you write on these boards using Windows 10. So, and you can use programming languages that you have known. As I said, you can use C# and you can use Visual Studio to quickly create these projects. You can do a variety of things with Windows 10 IoT Core. You can read sensor data, you can control some devices, you can connect to the cloud, transfer information, and do a lot more actually. So it's basically like you're writing a Windows application. Now in Windows application you used to write it for a desktop. Now you're writing a Windows application for a device. So that's the only difference. The device is running a Windows 10 IoT core, so it has all the necessary platform support and your .NET library and everything available to it. But core is a subset of the bigger picture, the actual Windows 10 that you see on a desktop. So it's very similar to writing a Windows app So there are different editions of Windows 10 IoT Core. So the most basic one is the Windows 10 IoT Core, which is a 256 MB RAM and a 2 GB storage that can be installed on a Raspberry Pi or a Mino board. And then there is the next level, which is the Windows 10 IoT for mobile devices. And the third one is the much upgraded one, which is the Windows 10 IoT for industry devices. So you can choose the one that suits for you and then work based on that. So what are the different steps that are involved in like creating an IoT application now that you're just getting started? So if you haven't done anything so far, you can still write code for the devices. The step one is to select a device. So first thing is you have to choose what kind of board you want to use, what kind of chip that has, and depending on your requirements or depending on your familiarity, you can choose a board like Raspberry Pi or an Arduino board to work with. That is your first step. So you have to decide what you're going to work with. And then you're going to install Windows 10 IoT Core on that particular device. So devices don't come with pre-installed Windows 10. You can buy one that has already, but if you buy a raw board like a Raspberry Pi, that may not have Windows 10 pre-installed. So what you can do is you can take an SD card. I'll show you how to do that. You can flash Windows 10 on it and then install that on your board. So that's your step two, like configuring that device with Windows 10 IoT Core. The third thing is you can use Visual Studio to develop universal Windows platform applications. So you're going to write some code that will execute on this particular board that you have chosen. And step four will be deciding the communication mechanism and data storage. Now that you have your device programmed and it is trying to connect to cloud, your web service, and then sending some data. So you have to decide the mechanism for communication. So you have to define the protocol, what protocol you're going to use, what is the backend services infrastructure that you're going to use. You may use Azure IoT Suite, and then you can use a SQL database over there on Azure, or you can use blob storage depending on the volumes of data that you have. So you have to decide on the communication and the storage infrastructure. The next one is like step 5, as I talked about. You can use Azure as an example for the data storage and communication and stuff like that. So Azure IoT Suite actually provides you with a number of services that you can utilize for IoT development. Like it has an Azure IoT Hub that actually can connect to millions of devices at a time and can receive and process tons and tons of data. So you could use that if you have like number of devices available that are going to work. Finally, like once you have all this set up, like you have programmed the device, you're collecting the data, the final and important step would be to like create actionable insights. So you have all this data, now what are you going to do with it? So you got to build some meaningful reports out of it based on which somebody can take an action. So if there is an error in some of the devices, so you can have a dashboard which flashes me saying, okay, there is an error on a particular device. So, and what is the problem with that device? So those kind of things you'll need to build. So you need to build analytics for the data that you're collecting. So that is your final step. So that is an end-to-end IoT solution for you. So getting started, like now, as I talked about, that is the step 1, which is where you have to select your device. So if you go to this URL that you can see on your screen right now, so msiotgithub.io, there it will tell you all the steps that you have to follow to actually set up the entire thing before you actually start writing the code. So before you start writing the code, you need to select your device, as I said. So you can see the devices that are supported by Windows 10 IoT Core. So there is a Raspberry Pi, Mino board, Max, Arduino, Windows Remote Arduino. So you can choose something depending on your needs. And then the next thing that you need to do is you need to have a PC with Windows 10 installed on it. So you have to have the public release version 10240 or more than that. And once you have the PC ready with Windows 10, you have to install Visual Studio 2015 on that. Because the UWP applications are not supported by previous versions of Visual Studio. So we will need to have Visual Studio 2015. Even Community Edition is fine, so which is a free edition provided by Microsoft. So if you install Visual Studio 2015, then you can install the Visual Studio templates for IoT Core project. Those will give you the UWP application templates that you can select when you're building a project. It's similar to like when you have an ASP.NET MVC project selected, so you have those web application templates. So like that, you will have IoT core project templates available in your Visual Studio itself. And then finally, you enable the developer mode on your Windows 10 device that you have. Now, the next step would be like I have the board. Now I have to install Windows 10 IoT Core on that. So how do I do that? So what you have to do is on the same URL, if you go to the next step, what it'll do is it'll ask you to select the device that you have chosen. So say for example, if I choose a Raspberry Pi 2, so I select Raspberry Pi 2, and then it'll give me a link to download the URL for the Windows 10 IoT Core for that particular device. So Windows has a version for Raspberry Pi, so you can download that entire file on your PC, and then you have to build a image. So basically, you have to flash this ISO file onto a SD card. So once you do that, what you have to do is you take that SD card on which you have flashed Windows 10 IoT Core operating system, you plug that into your device, and then you boot that device. So then it will be running on Windows 10 IoT Core. Now you are ready to start programming on it. So here is the download link for Raspberry Pi 2. So if you click on this, it will download the Windows operating system for Raspberry Pi 2 that you can put on an SD card. So now once you have the SD card ready, once you plug it and then you start the Raspberry Pi device, you can connect it to a monitor actually. It has all the ports. The Raspberry Pi has all the ports for networking, for USB, for VGA and all that. So once you take the VGA and then connect it to a monitor, then you can see this output. So when it starts, this is the home screen for a Windows 10 IoT Core Raspberry Pi device. So you can see the device name, which is MinWinPC. This is the default name given by Windows 10 IoT Core. So you can change that if you want to, but that's the default name that you get. And you can see the IP address that is obtained. Like if you plug a network cable to it, you see that it has been connected to the internet, then it has an IP address of its own. And it will show you any connected devices which are there on your USB port. So nothing is there, so you haven't connected anything, so it's blank right now. So this is the screen that you see. So once you have this screen, that means you are ready to actually build and deploy applications on this particular device. So the next is step 3 in detail. So what you're going to do is you're going to now develop code. So you open up Visual Studio, write code, write a program, and then you can install it on this particular device. You can deploy the code. I'll show you how to deploy the code. Now you are writing the code on your Windows 10 PC, remember. The Windows 10 PC that you have, so you install Visual Studio on that. You create a Universal Windows program application. You write some code, and then you deploy it onto the device. So how the connection happens is I'll show you. Then you're going to build a circuit. Basically, like the Raspberry Pi that you have is not your device actually. It's only a communication mechanism. So your device could be something else. Say for example, a tap in our example that we are going to talk about. So that is a device. Now how I'm going to connect this tap to the Raspberry Pi, we'll see that. So, and then you develop a web service basically and a database. So once your device starts sending you data, so it has to send data to a particular web service. So you build the services for that, the API, and then you write the program to send that data onto cloud, and then you store it in a database. So all that probably you can have it on Azure or on-prem, however you prefer it. And then you develop the logic for communication. Now you have the web service, you have a protocol, so you have to build the logic to communicate from the device to the cloud and cloud to the device. And then if you want, you can even build a mobile application to control the device. So now that you have your web API, you have your device, so you can write a mobile application that communicates with the web API, that sends some commands, and those commands are transferred back to your device. And then it can take some actions based on the command. And lastly, don't forget, it's all about insights. So you can build some reports out of the data that you have collected from your device. So the connection between your PC and your device on which you want to install this program is like, basically you have to connect it to the same network, like your PC and your on your device, Raspberry Pi, for example. Once they're on the same network, what you can do is you can go in Visual Studio, and you can select the target device as a remote machine, and then you can type the remote machine name or the IP address, and then run this program. So it will automatically be deployed on the Raspberry Pi device. Whatever device you mentioned here, it will be deployed onto that, and then it is running. So that's how it works. So let's talk about a sample project that we have built. So you can find the details on hackster.io. So if you go and search for WindWire or water management project that we have built, you can see all the details about the project, like what it does and what is the source code for that. So everything is available there. But I'll just walk you through the high level, on a high level, what it does. So basically what this project does is like it tries to monitor the water usage in a given home. So you have a number of taps in home. So whenever you turn on the tap, so it says it records that the tap has been turned on, and then whenever you turn it off, it records that it has been turned off, and then it calculates the usage of water from that tap. So like that you can see how much water you're using, and then you can use some reports to actually conserve water. So see where you're wasting a lot of water more, and then take some steps based on that. So that is what this project does. So it basically uses a solenoid valve. The solenoid valve is basically a tap which turns on and off depending on the electric current that you pass to it. So it's a 12-volt solenoid valve that whenever you pass 12 volts current to it, DC, it turns on, and then when you cut the supply, then it turns off. So that's what we're going to do, and it showcases how you can use Azure to build services and database. So we build a web API on Azure, and then we've created a database to capture all this information. We've used a Xamarin to actually build a mobile application to actually monitor the tap usage, and even actually turn on or off the tap using the mobile app itself. And then we have collected all this data and then build a Power BI dashboard out of it. So we've used Power BI to actually connect to the SQL database that you have in Azure and build some reports out of it. So let me show you the architecture. I'll build this slide up. Now, so if you see what happens here is like we have a button to turn the tap on or off, which is like right next to the tap. So you press that button. What that button does is it's connected to a Raspberry Pi. So it sends a signal that the button has been pressed, and then the Raspberry Pi knows like whether the tap is turned on or off. So it supplies the voltage or cuts the voltage to the tap, so it turns on or off. So in between step 2, there is a circuit and there is a battery that actually supplies the current to this tap. So what you're doing is you are sending your command through your Raspberry device, right? So once the Raspberry device receives a command from the button, what it does is simultaneously it does two things. One is it sends the voltage to the tap or cuts the voltage depending on whether it's on or off, and secondly what it does is it sends a command to Azure as well. So the Raspberry Pi connects to my web service which is running on Azure. It sends a command saying whether I have turned the tap on or whether I have turned it off. So that is all recorded over here in a database. So everything is being stored in a database on Azure through a web service. Now the fourth step is like building the reports out of the data that we have collected over here. So now that your database has all that information, that when it was turned on, when it was turned off, how much water was used, so you can build some reports out of it. The fifth part that you see is like the Xamarin mobile app that I talked about. So here it has controls that you can use to turn the tap on. So say for example, if I send a command to turn the tap on, what I do is I call the same web API that the Raspberry Pi is using. I send a command saying a request to turn it on. And then what the Raspberry Pi does is it keeps checking for messages on Azure. So whenever it gets saying, okay, I have a pending message for it, say for example, if it is turned on, then it receives that message and again supplies the voltage or cuts the voltage to the tap. So that is how this whole thing is working. All right, now let's take a look at the code. So what is the program that we have written on Windows 10 IoT Core to make this work? So now I told you that there is a button next to the tap that actually that is used to turn the tap on or off. So if you see, it's basically like a similar C# code that you have always seen. It's nothing special here. So there is an event called button pin value change event. So whenever you press a button, the value change event is fired. And then when this event is fired, we are writing some code like what we want to do in this particular scenario. Now we are checking GPIO pin. So this is important. GPIO pin is more a Windows 10 IoT Core or a board specific thing that you need to know. need to learn before you actually start writing code for Windows 10 IoT Core. So depending on the board that you have chosen, you have to select some pins. On which you're going to work on. So say for example, if I have to turn the voltage on or off, I choose a particular pin on Raspberry Pi that actually makes the connection so that the voltage is turned on or off. So that is how you have to choose pins depending on your requirement and depending on your needs, and then you have to write programs against those pins. So GPIO pin, falling edge, what I do is if the pin value, so I have a variable called as pin value which stores the previous pin value. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to see if the pin value is high. So if the pin value is high means the tap is turned off right now. So I have to turn it on. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the pin value to low, which means now I have swapped the value. So which means the voltage will be passed to the solenoid valve. So tap will be turned on. So here the tap is turned on by swapping the pin value. And then what we do is, important thing is we send the same message as I told you to Azure. So I created a HTTP client here. I created a string content of 1, so which is 1 is basically turn on. So that is how we are telling the web service that I have turned the tap on. So we create a string content of 1 and then we post this. When we post this to the Win IoT post URL that you see on the top of the code. So we just make a post call to this particular URL which does the things of storing it into the database, calculating the water usage, and all that is done behind the scenes. Here what all we are doing is we are passing the voltage and then we are telling the cloud that okay, we have turned it on. So that is the if GPIO pin value is high. So if it is low, the else part, if you see, it will be totally opposite. So I'm turning the pin value to high, which means cutting off the voltage, tap is turned off, and then I create a string content of 0, which means it is turned off, and then I'm sending the same message to the web API. And then we don't do anything with the response. The service gives me a 200 OK, and we just leave it at that. So because we are not doing anything with this. The next part is like how we get the messages from the cloud. So what we have done here is we have used a timer to check every 2-3 seconds, whatever you want. You can go and ask the web service that you have written, like saying if there is any pending message for the device. That is one way of doing it. The other one is, this is a pull mechanism. You can also do a push mechanism. So if you're using Azure IoT Suite, then you have an Azure IoT Hub where you can register your device. So once it is registered, what happens is it enables the cloud to actually push messages back to the device. So you could follow that approach as well. So for simplicity, we have done a pull approach. So here we create a HTTP client and we do a get on a web service. So that tells me, gives me a response. If the response is 1 means, okay, I have to turn it on. Otherwise, I have to turn it off. So here we are saying if the response equal to 1, then we are again, what we're doing is the same thing that we did in the previous code. So we are setting the pin value to low, which is we are setting the voltage on, and then we are displaying some text on the UI saying valve has been switched on or off. So that is how we do get the messages from the cloud. This is the Power BI dashboard that we have built for this project. So you can see that it has 2 views. It has a desktop view and a mobile view as well. So it shows you like how much water I have used in a particular day or a particular month or a week. So you can have all those filters and then see this data in a graphical format and then take some decisions like where or when it has been, by which tab it has been used a lot. So that is one example of IoT that you can do. So you can do a number of things with IoT. Any device it could be. You can write a program against it to track metrics of that particular device. Now this is the Xamarin-based IoT app that we have created. So if you see, one of the screens is basically like you have the taps in the home, and then you can turn it on or turn it off by using the switches. And then the second one is basically a chart. So it shows you the usage of water on a weekly or a daily or a monthly basis. So the same reports that you just saw on Power BI can also be done on the mobile app, and you can view the usage of water on your app itself. That was all about Windows 10 IoT Core. So you can take a look at that and then start building your own applications, track data of your own devices. In order to quickly build IoT applications, you can use Azure IoT Suite. So it provides you a number of services that are readily available that you can use to build IoT applications. So it has a lot of support mechanism that you will need, infrastructure that you will need to build these applications. So as I was talking, IoT Hub is one thing that allows you two-way communication between your device and cloud. So that you can use for that, and it can handle like tons of data at any given point of time. Stream analytics you can use to build reports that are like generating data at runtime. So as they receive data, data is pushed to your report, and then you can see it changing every second. So that you can do using stream analytics. You can build mobile apps. You can have logic apps. Basically, you can raise some alerts. Like so, if, for example, if you're receiving data and you all of a sudden you get an error, so you can have logic to raise alerts and show them on the dashboard saying some of what devices are having a problem. So all of that is available. There is DocumentDB available, which is a NoSQL database that you can use to store data in JSON format. When you have large amounts of data, it's highly scalable. So the idea is basically to accelerate time to value, so you can quickly build applications. And Windows Azure IoT Suite also provides you with pre-built solutions, pre-configured solutions like a remote monitoring solution or a predictive maintenance solution. So you can just create those by click of a button. We have explained that in our previous webinar as well. So you can just do that with the click of a button, and then you can use the source code and modify it according to your needs, and then change anything that you want, and then deploy it again to work based on your requirements. So the benefits are basically speed up your development. You can quickly build and deploy applications using Azure IoT Suite. And then you can plan and budget accordingly because you can scale up and down using Azure. You can add more instances or remove more instances, and it's like totally separated so that you can scale any particular instance, like in between wherever the data load is getting high. And then you can connect to millions of devices at any given point of time. So with this, we come to almost the end of this session. And let me just talk a little bit more about Winwire Technologies, who we are, what we do. So we are an IT solutions company. We provide services to customers across the globe, and we work on a number of platforms, especially Microsoft. We have a lot of expertise in that. We work on Azure, Office 365, SharePoint, .NET, ASP.NET, and then we work on mobile platforms as well, Android, iOS, Windows, by using Appsolator and Xamarin. We also work on Salesforce and Dynamics CRM. And we are also a partner for IoT on the Red Carpet program for Internet of Things, and also the Red Carpet program on Cortana Analytics. Our next webinar in this series is going to be on Cortana Analytics, which is on 17th of December, so you can attend that as well. And we have a IoT Quick Start offering. So you can see we have a number of offerings here. We do a strategy briefing, architectural design session, implementing a POC, and then taking that POC to the production level. So you can visit our website winwire.com to get more details about the offerings that we have on IoT, and see based on your needs you can contact us to get started on this. So as I said, the next webinar on Cortana Analytics on December 17th. You're welcome to join that. And if you have any questions, then please use the chat window on the webinar to ask any questions, and I'll be happy to answer those.
Yeah, Amit, thanks a lot for the wonderful session. I know we are past 4 minutes already, but in the interest of time, I would like to take a couple of questions and take other questions offline. So I have one quick question from Mark, where he asked, can I set up a Raspberry Pi to using Windows 8.1 or Windows 8 version?
No, actually you cannot do that. To work with Raspberry Pi, you'll need to have Windows 10 IoT core. So that is the basic version that is supported. So Windows 8 and previous versions are not supported on Raspberry Pi. So you have to use Windows 10 IoT core for that.
Thanks, Amit. So the other question coming from Ben is like, does Windows 10 IoT support Java on the Raspberry Pi too?
No, you could actually build applications using C# in Visual Studio, but it right now doesn't support Java.
Okay. Okay, great. Hey, thanks, Amit. We have few more questions, but I think in the interest of time, we will take them offline.
Sure.
Thanks everyone for joining this webinar, and I hope you found it interesting. Again, as Amit mentioned, we have our third webinar on IoT on Cortana Analytics on December 17th, where we will discuss how Cortana Analytics guides the new age of data analysis with a blend of Azure IoT services for big data analytics and real-time monitoring. I hope you will all join us for our next webinar. Have a good day. Thanks, Amit, for the wonderful session. Have a good day.
Sure. Thank you, Noor. Thanks everybody for joining. You have a wonderful day. Thanks.